I was wandering through the expansive paths of San Francisco's Golden Gate Park when a thought hit me. Why don't more cities have this? Here I was in the middle of one of the most expensive and busy cities in the world, and yet it felt like I had escaped to a peaceful oasis far from the chaos. Green spaces like these, whether you're in New York's Central Park or San Francisco's Golden Gate Park, are a breath of fresh air, literally and figuratively. Speaking of New York Central Park, if you've ever seen a postcard of New York, odds are Central Park is on it. It's one of the most famous examples of urban planning done right. It's the city's crown jewel, a perfect marriage of man-made beauty and natural splendor. The intricate planning that went into designing its pathways, waterways, bridges, and lush greenery is nothing short of a masterpiece. You don't have to be a botanist to appreciate the greenery, and you certainly don't need to be an athlete to enjoy the open space. The park was carefully thought out and precisely executed to give people a place where they could escape the noise, breathe a little easier, and take in the beauty of nature without ever leaving the city. Surely, beautiful things attract, and just 10 years after Central Park opened, San Francisco Golden Gate Park was born. It was, in fact, modeled after Central Park, and some might even say it was designed to rival it. Nonetheless, it has its own unique charm. It is big, green, and teeming with life, but there's just something about it. Maybe it's the cool Bay Area breeze or the towering redwoods that feels distinct. When I visited, the rest of the country was sweltering under a summer heat wave, but there I was, strolling through San Francisco's cool, welcoming green spaces. It got me thinking about the role parks play in our lives, especially in cities, and I came to the conclusion that they're crucial for our mental and physical well-being. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, right? Parks are that play. They give people an escape from the grid, a place to relax, to exercise, and to sync with nature. In cities like San Francisco and New York, where life moves at a breakneck pace, parks are like a pause button for the soul. As crucial as parks are, it might interest you to know that not every city values its green spaces. Take Los Angeles, for example. Upon all its grandeur, LA only has a few parks and they are far from each other. Yes, they have Griffith Park and Runyon Canyon, but not everyone wants to hike up a mountain just to see some green space. It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. It doesn't always work for everyone. LA, with its car-centric culture and sprawling suburbs, hasn't put the same focus on creating accessible, walkable green spaces for all. You know what's funny? In LA, people will drive miles just to get to a decent park. It's almost similar to buying water in a desert. It doesn't just make sense. But it's the reality for a lot of people in cities where green space is more like a luxury than a right. This makes me wonder why so many cities would prioritize parking lots and shopping malls over creating green spaces that genuinely benefit the community. And speaking of green spaces, long before people started throwing around words like well-being and mental health, there was one man who truly grasped the importance of green spaces in cities. His name was William Hammond Hall, the mastermind behind Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. Back in the day, when cities were just beginning to sprawl and expand, the idea of setting aside large patches of land for parks wasn't exactly a top priority. But Hall, a visionary, saw what others couldn't. He believed that city parks were essential lifelines for city dwellers, offering a break from the daily grind and a chance to breathe. He also believed that parks were social hubs where people from all walks of life could come together, interact, and foster a sense of community. Because in those days, cities were crowded, dirty, and noisy. The rich had their big estates with gardens, while the rest of the population crammed into smaller, less pleasant spaces. When it was time to design Golden Gate Park, the area Hall was given wasn't much to look at. In fact, it was known as the outside lands, a vast, barren expanse of sand dunes. Imagine trying to grow a park out of sand. Most people thought it was impossible, but where there's a will, there's a way. And Hall had plenty of will. He set out to transform the dunes into a lush green paradise, planting hundreds of thousands of trees and designing the park to make the most of the natural beauty that could be coaxed from the land. After Hall's initial work, John McLaren, a Scottish horticulturist, took the reins as park superintendent in 1887. McLaren expanded on Hall's foundation, planting even more trees and creating themed green spaces, including the iconic Japanese tea garden and the Conservatory of Flowers. By the time Golden Gate Park officially opened in 1870, it had already begun to play a significant role in shaping the identity of the city. Over the years, the park expanded to over 1,000 acres, offering everything from sports facilities to museums to peaceful gardens. Today, Golden Gate Park remains a hub for major events like the Outside Lands Music Festival, and it continues to be a vibrant public space that reflects the spirit of San Francisco. One of the most interesting parts of the park is tucked away at the far west end. Two towering Dutch-style windmills. Built in the early 1900s, they served a real purpose, addressing a critical need for water to irrigate the park's huge landscape. The park's sandy soil and coastal location made traditional methods nearly impossible. So, in 1903, the first of these windmills, the Dutch windmill, was completed. 5 years later, in 1908, the Murphy windmill followed. These windmills harness the power of the wind to pump groundwater, supplying up to 30,000 gallons of water a day to keep the park lush and green. But there's something more fascinating than two towering windmills, and that is seeing a bison wandering around in the middle of an urban park. What most people don't know is that Golden Gate Park has had its own bison paddock since the 1890s. It was established as part of a larger effort to save American bison from extinction. At one point, there were over 100 calves born here, helping preserve the population of this iconic species in North America. And this is a perfect example of how urban parks can play a vital role in the preservation of nature. Now, I can't talk about the Golden Gate Park without mentioning one of its favorite spots, the DeYoung Museum. This museum has been a key part of the park's culture scene since it opened in 1895. Founded by philanthropist Adolf Sutro, it started out as a place to showcase American art. But over the years, it's grown to include a diverse range of international art exhibits. The building itself has gone through changes too. The original structure was replaced in 1921, and today, the museum features a striking copper facade that blends beautifully with the park's natural surroundings. If you've ever been to Seattle's Space Needle, the view here might remind you of that, though on a smaller scale. Museums located in green spaces like this one are a brilliant idea, in my opinion. They give you a chance to not only appreciate the art, but also reconnect with nature at the same time. In the beginning of this video, I talked about New York Central Park and how Golden Gate Park might have mirrored it. However, much like apples and oranges, even though they are similar in some ways, they're also distinct in others. For instance, when it comes to size, Golden Gate Park edges out Central Park. At roughly 1,017 acres, Golden Gate Park stretches farther, compared to Central Park's approximately 843 acres. But the size of an elephant doesn't make it the king of the jungle. Yes, Golden Gate Park is larger, but Central Park attracts far more visitors annually, pulling in an estimated 42 million people, compared to Golden Gate Park's 24 million. But comparing parks by just size and visitor numbers doesn't sound fair at all, because there is also climate to consider. Now, if you're in New York, you know that Central Park goes through all the highs and lows of weather. Summers can feel like you're walking through a sauna, while winters can freeze you right to the bone. That's why they call it a city of extremes. Golden Gate Park, on the other hand, enjoys a relatively mild climate year-round. San Francisco's famous fog blankets the park in the summer, and winters are more about rain than snow. So what makes a park truly successful? Is it the size, the number of visitors, or the climate? In my opinion, it's none of those things. A park is successful when it serves the needs of its community, when it offers a place to escape, relax, and recharge. Both Central Park and Golden Gate Park do this in spades. They might have been created with different visions in mind, and they may serve different cities, but they both offer that essential connection to nature that urban dwellers crave. Now over to you. In your own opinion, what truly makes a park successful, and what truly makes a city successful in terms of parks and urban planning? Share your opinions in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this.